For a genre that's target audience is catered towards young teenage boys, there's one main character that stands out above the rest in being in that same age demographic throughout the entire story. Welcome back to the Best of Main Characters, where we talk about the best main characters that Shonen Jump has to offer. This time we're talking about everyone's favorite adventurous 11-year-old boy, Gon Freaks. There's something rather entertaining watching Gon navigate throughout the complexities of Hunter. In a world that has such intricate rules and power systems, to see a kid who blows steam out of his ears when something gets too complex, and yet also become one of the strongest entities in the world, albeit under special circumstances, is something rather special and pushes the depth of Hunter, showing that you do not have to have an IQ of 200 to get through the realm of being a hunter. That isn't to say Gon isn't smart though. Like most shonen protagonists, his intelligence lies in combat, but also in hunting. All of this to say that his skills undoubtedly pay the bills and help carry him throughout the hellish world that Yoshihiro Togashi set up for us. To first understand Gon, however, we must understand where he came from through his backstory. Gon was brought to Whale Island by his father, Jing Freaks, after disappearing for 10 years in the desire to become a hunter. Jing then proceeded to abandon his own son in the care of his grandmother and little cousin, and left Gon to pursue what the world had to offer. Whale Island is a place filled with strong and ravenous creatures, and 3 years before our story, Gon got attacked by a fox bear. Gon was then suddenly saved by a man named Kite, who was one of Jing's students, who was on the hunt for Jing. He then tells Gon that he is a hunter, which inspires Gon to make preparations to head out to sea to become a hunter himself. When it comes to Gon, the first thing that always stands out for me is his simplicity. In a world as complicated as Hunter with characters who have different and insane techniques that vary from person to person, it really makes Gon stand out as the main character. One of the things that is rather simple about him is his moves. For starters, Gon is an enhancer, a subcategory for the power system in Hunter called Nen. An enhancer is rather basic as it allows you to enhance your body to perform varying feats. For Gon, his ability is to hit really hard, with his main ability being called the Jajanken, or essentially rock, paper, scissors. There are a couple of interesting things to note about him getting the Jajanken. For starters, it's not even named until chapter 207, which in terms of the story is right now, it's about 50% of the story so far. Obviously late for a move that we are meant to connect with our main character, but he doesn't even get access to the concept of the move until Greed Island, which is the third major long arc in Hunter. Personally, I believe that Togashi did this due to his power system being complex enough that he would only upgrade Gon's power set when the series called for it, but it is also a show of progression for Gon becoming a hunter. He needed to become stronger to fight and conquer Greed Island, which was a test by Jing, his father. But also when the world around him evolved through the introduction of the Chimera Ants, something that the world was not ready for, Togashi also evolved Gon to slowly build up the tools that everyone else around him already had, aside from Killua, who was fulfilling the same role in the story. The interesting thing about all of this is his moves. Through the powers of Nen, one of the more complex power systems out there, people in Hunter can get mighty creative. For example, we can look at Knuckle, whose power forces you to pay a power loan that he gives you after he connects with you, and if you cannot hit him back and pay the loan, then you will start earning interest until you go bankrupt and your Nen is shut off for a while. That is just one example of some pretty ridiculous abilities. Gon's is just based off of rock, paper, scissors. Jajanken is just Gon stuttering to say the word Janken, which is just rock, paper, scissors in Japanese. It's not the most creative thing in the world. If it's rock, he can use his enhancer abilities to punch really hard. If it's paper, it allows him to emit a blast. And if it's scissors, it allows him to transmute a sword. But the scissors and paper part doesn't even show up until the following arc where Jajanken was introduced, because Togashi needed Gon to evolve. The simplicity of the move, however, is where Gon shines, as Nen is a representation of the person, and Gon basing his moves off of a simple game is very in character, and shows that you do not need to be complex to be effective. The other bit of his simplicity is his way of thinking. Gon isn't dumb, he just thinks differently compared to everyone else. While everyone in a series like Hunter thinks too in line with the rules of the world, Gon thinks outside of the box and arrives at conclusions that no one else could think of. For example, in the Hunter exams arc, the entire crew was going to fail the test if they did not get to the designated room in the allotted time. While everyone was trying to answer questions to get through the door, Gon just smashed through the walls, bypassing the questions and allowing him to pass on time. Another set of examples is that during fights, Gon has objectives. It does not matter to him if he wins the overall fight, so long as he gets his own personal victory. Examples of this include the bout with Chairman Netero, where he forces him to use the other hand during their exercise, and when Gon was able to deliver a blow to Hisoka during the fight at Heaven's Arena, he forced him to take his badge number back from the Hunter exam. Gon does not care about the glory as long as he feels like he's progressing. Another big aspect of Gon is his emotions. Gon is an 11-year-old boy, and with it, wears his emotions on his sleeves. For a story that has a lot of characters that keep to themselves, Gon is someone who is very upfront on how he feels and how he feels about the situation. Whether that is dealing with a murderous clown in Hisoka, a gang of terrorists in the Phantom Troop, a serial killer in Genthru on Greed Island, or a chimera ant that even the chairman of the Hunter Association, Netero, thought that he could not be in Pito. Gon grew up with the idea of protecting his friends no matter the cost, and protecting innocent life, like how he did on Whale Island by befriending wildlife. He does not take life for granted and even chastises the Phantom Troop for the killing of innocent. Later on during the Chimera Ant arc, Kite, a hunter that Gon knew since he was a child, ends up dying at the hands of Pitou, a royal guard of the Chimera Ants, with Gon blaming himself for it. Gon gets an idea in his head that Kite can be revived by Pitou since Pitou turned Kite into an automatic training soldier. By the time of the palace invasion, Gon confronts Pitou, who is healing Komugi, a bystander at the king's behest. Gon, above all else, feels responsible for the death of Kite, and because of that, will not take no for an answer in regard to healing Kite. Pitou pleads for Gon to allow Pitou to heal Komugi first before healing Kite. Gon eventually agrees, but first shortens the time requested by Pitou to heal Komugi, and then threatens to kill Komugi if Pitou does not hurry up. Gon's simplicity in this moment is the scariest thing about him. Everything that is on Gon's mind is written on his face. He will get what he wants, and he will get Pitou to heal Kite, and Pitou knows this. And what's worse for Pitou is that they know they can't heal Kite, and that Gon is a ginormous threat and will become a bigger one when they find out that Kite is gone for good. Killua knows this too, and is suffering the entire time because they cannot do anything to help Gon. Gon wants to do this by himself because he cannot get over the fact that he was useless for not being strong enough. When Pitou is done healing Komugi and they rush out of the hideout to where they're hiding Kite, Pitou reveals to Gon that Kite is dead and that Pitou must kill Gon for the king's sake, as Pitou assessed that Gon, above all other people, could be a threat to the king. Gon does not care about any of this. He has a mental break and makes a Nen vow to obtain all power he would ever have just so he could crush Pitou. He then ages to the point where he is an adult and destroys Pitou. Killua shows up and then distracts Gon, and a puppet variant of Pitou takes the opportunity to take off Gon's arm, in which Gon is glad because he then feels like Kite, who also had his arm ripped off. It's all because of these feelings that Gon's icy demeanor gets compared to the Ant King, Meruem. There's a strong duality between these two in the arc despite never meeting. Meruem throughout the arc is turning from a monster to a human, and Gon is turning from a human to a monster. Despite feeling so bad about everything, the reality is that Gon is the only person that blames himself for Kite's demise. Jing, Gon's dad, who trained Kite, said that it wasn't his fault, and instead blames Kite for underestimating the ants, and the only thing Gon can do is train so he's not caught being too weak again. Kite got reincarnated into a young girl after his death, but still kept their memories. Gon goes to them, and even Kite does not blame Gon. It helps heal Gon's trauma of not being someone that was strong enough in that exact situation. Throughout the story, Gon's total and utter defeat in his own eyes was letting Kite, someone he knew as a kid, down, despite him progressing through the story at this point and getting stronger. He didn't know how to process anything because he didn't have someone there, aside from Killua, who was just another kid, to help go through his emotions. Gon, being a child and still in the early stages of his life, ran into immense disappointment and regret and wanted to believe so hard that there was a way for him to fix the mistake, and when there wasn't, he just let everything go. He wanted so hard to get Kite back, and that he even threatened an innocent bystander in Komugi. That doesn't make him contradictory in his own character, but instead shows the emotional trauma and turmoil that he was going through internally, something that Togashi shows brilliantly here. I did briefly want to go over another key emotion regarding Gon, and that is his selfishness. Gon, being a child, is someone that is rather curious. His curiosity ends up bleeding into other people in rather important situations. The two key examples that I can think of regarding Gon's curiosity that turns into selfishness is the volleyball match against Razor. Gon was using his Jajangken to explode the ball so Razor could not counter it. The issue is that Killua was the one holding the ball, and Gon's punches were so impactful that it was destroying Killua's hands. Killua tried to hide it from everyone, but they all noticed. Biscuit, one of Gon and Killua's Nen teachers, called Killua out for hiding it and told Gon that it was too risky. Gon then tells everyone that he knew that it was hurting Killua and wanted to continue anyways, and said that only he could do it because Killua was the one holding the ball. Killua then, despite being in an immense amount of pain, is more than happy to do it so that he can help Gon. The issue here is that Gon wanted to beat Razor. He wanted to prove to both Razor and, in a way, his father Jing, who told Razor not to go easy on Gon, that Gon is strong enough to live up to their expectations. The second example is the conflict between Gon and Pitou. Killua wants to take down Pitou with Gon, but Gon tells Killua to stay out of it. Gon feels such a strong personal vendetta against Pitou that he does not even realize that Killua is suffering, because Killua just wants to go out there for his buddy, who is obviously suffering, but Gon can't see that. He can only see one thing. He's tunnel visioned by Pitou. Gon, being a kid and still growing up, is obviously going to try to accomplish his own goals, and I think that flaw of him not being a lawful good character adds to the depth of his own character and to the story itself. According to the hunter rules, every hunter is always supposed to be hunting something. For Gon, that was his father, Jing. Jing left Gon on Whale Island at a young age, and Gon's whole inspiration to become a hunter was so he could find Jing. After meeting his friends and becoming a hunter, Gon and Killua saved money and then went back to Whale Island, where they got a copy for Greed Island by Gon's Aunt Mito. Greed Island, being a game that Jing made up, made this game specifically for Gon to go through, and Gon does just that by going through the game and beating it. After finishing up Greed Island, he was able to use Accompany, a spell from Greed Island that he was able to get as a reward for beating the game. He then uses it to teleport to Jing. It's just that Jing rigged itself so that if Gon used Accompany, a spell that would teleport both him and Killua instead of just himself, then he would have gotten teleported to Kite, which then kicked off their involvement in the Chimera Ant arc. After the Chimera Ant arc, and Gon makes a Nen vow to gain all the power he would have, and then got all the life sapped out of him to kill Pitou, he had the entire Hunter Association hoping for him to get healed. Once he did get healed, the entire Hunter Association bullied Jing, who was revealed to be a member of the Zodiacs, the chairman's personal selection of hunters, into meeting with Gon at a place called the World Tree. After they had a nice long chat, Gon asked Jing what he wanted, and he tells him that he wanted what he does not already have. And afterwards, he tells him about the Dark Continent, and he says that if they share the same destination, then Gon should enjoy the side trips. Quote, something more important than the thing you're hunting could be right there by the side of the road. End quote. The entire journey to find Jing was just a reason for the story to continue. This quote by Jing encapsulates the essence of Hunter x Hunter. There's a reason that Jing was introduced at the end of Gon's story in the series. Once Jing showed up, Gon's story ended. It's no surprise that the story is moving forward off the main island, instead focusing on the unexplored territory of the world without Gon, since Gon can be paralleled with the main land of Hunter x Hunter. Everything up until the point was the side stories. All of it was the stuff on the side of the road to Gon. Gon just needed an excuse to go out there and enjoy life. Now that he's solved his quest, he now gets to enjoy his own personal life, not as Gon the hunter, but Gon the kid. Despite Gon being removed from the story, that does not mean he's gone forever. There is a plot line regarding him to go meet Gyro. He could somehow end up on the Dark Continent alongside most of the other current cast members, and he could also ultimately get his Nen back. Or Togashi could just take him out of the story and have him just be a young boy living his life with the same way that a normal boy in Hunter x Hunter should. Personally, I think that if Gon came back as the focal point of the story, I think that would be nice to take place on the mainland while everyone else is dealing with something on the Dark Continent. Gon is a great main character, and I think that he was the optimal choice for such a story like Hunter x Hunter, and I am glad that Togashi chose to make a character like Gon to explore such a big world, and I do hope that he eventually makes his return into the story. That's all I got. If you have any thoughts on the video or any ideas for future videos, please leave them down in the comment section below. If you like what you heard, consider liking and subscribing, as it would mean a lot. But that's it. Okay, bye.